Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us back here. We want to talk about one of the biggest business transformations within the next 10 years and about the results of a joint research study about the topic of SAP S/4HANA joined PwC and LeanIX. Please welcome my guests here on our couch, I just wanted to say, but we have it kind of comfy here for the next 45 minutes. Please welcome Director of PwC, Oliver Klein, and Co-CEO of LeanIX, André Christ. Now, some of us probably not being experts on this topic. Could you tell us in a short summary, like, I know people are calling it one of the most significant innovations in the SAP application since over 20 years. What to expect from this?
Yeah, I think SAP S4 is really one of the biggest topics, at least from our perspective, right now and also for the next 5-10 years. At least this is also the view from many of our customers. So it's not just a technical upgrade, it's not just performing a minor technical release upgrade. It's really a big transformation for really of the customers, and they, as we will see later on, they see it also as a great opportunity to transform their business. And on the other side, we can recognize a big respect by many of them, so they really see lots of challenges to getting it done. And especially the big enterprises are already spending quite some time on doing planning and proper planning to get it done in the right way. And so this was also the reason why we selected this as a topic for the study, because everyone is speaking about all these digital topics, cloud, drones, IoT, blockchain. But in the end, this is really one of the biggest topics also the architecture functions are facing, and not just emerging technologies.
And there you just said that there is excitement, but there's also hesitation.
Yeah, I think what is interesting for us as an architecture tool provider, we see in our customer landscape probably 80% of our customers dealing with SAP structures in their landscapes. And we're getting asked how to best structure it in their architecture practice. So for us, it's also an important thing within the study to understand where they're heading, how they do it. And I think these are some of the questions we were able to get answered, which also help us to prepare and think about what does the contribution of enterprise architecture look like for such transformation programs.
And before we now talk about the study, what is there to expect for a customer? What is the innovative thing about the S/4HANA?
I think there are a few aspects that comes or are tried to get introduced with S4. It's first of all, SAP is really trying to, following a similar approach like LeanIX, so really going back to a lean setup, getting rid of functionalities, where many customers say, so how can you go for an upgrade without having less functionalities than your previous version? Does this really make sense? But they could recognize in the recent years that all the SAP landscapes got more and more complex and more customized, and it got too much. And now they try to move backwards. And besides, they also try to adopt all these current trends like cloud technologies, AP management, and also the integrations with other ERP systems like from Salesforce, Workday, etc., etc. Yeah.
Simply a landscape, real-time data, freeing resources.
Yeah, I think maybe if we look a little bit on the architecture perspective of the new platform, probably it's too easy to say it's really simpler. It's more diverse. So if you also look on the strategy SAP is following up, we've recently seen again huge acquisitions going on. And they're actually doing it since a couple of years with companies like success factors, and so on. So they're adding whole parts of their business model. So integration between them gets very important. So we see things like API hubs, and then the question of how to align master data between the systems. So ideally, all those systems work well together, but then you have the different dimensions of some of that is really on-premise. So probably all the core SAP ERP stuff, but then on top of that you have more and more cloud systems. So that raises topics like security, compliance. So where do you put all the data, and what are you allowed to keep or to give outside? So I think just like by making it simpler in the core is a good thing, but then you get more possibilities by having access to very modern solutions.
But we all agree on it's one of the biggest business transformations coming up. Now, talking about your research, is there something like a transformation timeline? Do I have to hurry, or do I have to be really careful and take everything step by step?
Yes, absolutely. So at the beginning, so when SAP started to introduce this idea of SAP S/4HANA, many, especially the big companies, were quite, let's wait, let's see, let's try not to be the first adapter. So especially as they were really seeing the big elephant in front of them. But so also when we did this study, we was quite surprised actually. Already quite a lot of companies did it already, so around 20% have done it already.
With different approaches, as we see right
Yes,
here on the slide. So
exactly.
It's
and this
not
was
one fits all.
This was the second learning. There's no standard approach for doing it, so there are different approaches. So in general, we can divide between greenfield and brownfield, but also combinations of those. And so this is really, was quite interesting for us to see. So there's no standard way. And for this reason, we said, let's do this study. Let's find out which patterns do we find in the market.
Yeah, I think one of the questions is really, so the one thing is we heard yesterday, like the shit of yesterday, so the force of moving forward. So SAP is going to terminate their support in 2025. So there's a certain pressure to do it. But I think in terms of the meaning of this transformation, so there have been major upgrades in the past as well, so more technical upgrades, I think. And but this time, I think there's probably a trick also in it, which is allowing also the business sides to jump on this transformation, because they are going to get or see it as a key enabler for digital transformation efforts. So it's not only perceived as a pure technical thing, although it might have started in the beginning as HANA, so very, very in memory and all that stuff. So they kind of also managed to position it in light of the whole digital transformation. And probably this helps also to accelerate timelines once the business is behind it. So things sometimes start to move faster.
So now you just mentioned 2025. We all know what's happening then. Is that like the aim, transformation ready until 2025, or please be faster?
Actually, we believe that many of the companies will be faster and will not wait until the last moment, for sure. And this was also finding. Yeah.
I think in the study, even the result was saying by 2020, a large 70%. Percentage, 70% have planned it into that. So that could be an indicator of the importance. So probably what we also found out in this study is that there's a higher importance with companies who have a large SAP implementation. So they are covering more and more processes with it, not compared probably to the smaller companies who mainly cover financial accounting, but the larger ones are covering more of those processes, and then also expect a better, or improved processes all across the enterprise. So I think there's a strong correlation in the importance then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So SAP, very important for the process of digital transformation. We see it right here, 65% they think it's very important.
Yeah, especially when it comes to enterprises, they see this as, and it's not like you might think initially in saying, okay, Gartner introduces this base layered architecture model, and saying, yeah, we have these systems of record, and saying SAP is really one of the systems of record and just one, but actually, it's also seen by many customers as really part of the digital transformation, as a key part and key enabler.
Now, very nice that you just mentioned key. So key drivers, what are the key drivers now for the transformation? Some people might think costs, first thing, but no.
Yeah, I mean, we see it actually in the study. So it's lower cost is actually rated probably more on the lower side, even in like below 20%. But then improved business processes was one of the major findings that it would turn into that. Also, all across all across the board, it was the fact of more real-time business analytics, being able to analyze things which are happening. So IoT as a use case for many manufacturing companies is driving that, of course, so that they want to get that data quick. But then all in all, also modernization of the ERP landscape was one of the biggest drivers we found out in the study, actually.
Did you sometimes have the feeling that it also felt like the customers feel kind of forced?
No, that's what we initially thought, that far more companies would say, yes, we feel a little bit like under pressure, having the feeling we have to do it, and we just do it because SAP tells to do it. And we also thought, before we did the study, that there would be a much bigger rate saying, yeah, we see it as a pure technical conversion. But finding was this was not the case. So really, the majority of companies see it really see business drivers as key drivers for going for this upgrade and this transformation. And they really try to get something out of it, some benefits really out of it, and not just doing it because they have to do it.
So it sounds like great opportunities, but with opportunities, of course, there are always challenges.
Yeah, of course. If we look at what the companies say, and I think what we saw is that more than 70% of the companies say or have SAP landscapes which are more than 10 years old. So this is driving some of the challenges, of course. Those landscapes most of the time pretty complex, so they have a high degree of customization, and then they struggle with clean master data. So these were like the top 3 reasons we found out. And if we look at, like on an abstract level, what our customers have to deal with, often what we see is that we have some central SAP systems and then many, many interfaces going into them, and then you have a lot of systems around that. And I think that's what's also making projects very complicated. What do you say?
Absolutely, especially for those companies who plan to go for a brownfield approach. For them, it's really key to get good transparency about the SE situation, to identify, as you said, all the existing interfaces, the different dependencies between SAP and other corresponding systems, so they have to find a way to get the complexity under control and to get transparency.
And I mean, you talked about the risks. We've seen in the last 2 years 2 major projects, even in the public, being announced to be a big fail. Large logistics provider announcing big project. Just recently, like a couple of days ago, large retail company stopping a big implementation. So I think in general, an ERP implementation is not that easy, and then doing it like on the fly with a major technical upgrade and trying to improve the processes at the same time. So that's definitely a huge challenge, and it requires a solid preparation from all sides.
But how now convincing all these people like these challenges, you can deal with them? Everything's going to be fine. Hard question.
Think there's no doubt. It's complex, such a transformation, but there are ways and approaches to get it under control. And you need to do proper planning, you need to have the proper tools, and then it's definitely manageable. but it should not get underestimated. Yeah.
And what about we were talking about the cloud, of course, these 2 days as well. Are they ready? The studied groups, are they ready to deal with the cloud? Or what are fears, what are challenges here?
I think we have to distinguish between being ready and being willing to go for the cloud. And so we can recognize in the market so that more and more companies, also enterprises, are really willing to use or to go for cloud-based ERP systems like Salesforce, got really popular in the recent years. But especially when it comes to the core, they still prefer to stay on premise. It's different when it comes to a smaller company. They're much more open also to go, when it comes to SAP, to go for the cloud-based SAP solution. But there's a difference between the size of the companies. Yeah.
But why is that? Smaller companies don't have sensitive data, or?
No, I think probably. I mean, we also see it with cloud adoption in general. So I don't think it's a specific thing with SAP. We see it. A hybrid cloud is an important factor. So companies are taking on specific solutions as software as a service, or they combine it with their systems on premise. So that's not, I think, something very specific to SAP. I think some of the smaller companies tend to be faster in adopting cloud strategies first. But to be honest, if we look in our portfolio, we started 6.5 years ago with the question, would companies be willing to put their architecture data into the cloud? Today, we've probably proven it. Yeah? So it's 100% of our customers are in the cloud. And these are from, let's say, smaller groups to super large groups. So sometimes we also see large groups are very quick in adopting it. Yeah? So I think here in this case for SAP, so it's not something very specific, but it's something where I think it's also a risk mitigation approach. And what we found out is they start on premise, but cloud enabled. And I think that allows them then to quickly move into the cloud once they've sorted out everything.
What's quickly?
2020, 2025, yeah.
There we go again with 2025. We kind of jumped one topic, now adding EA tools. Mm. What's in it for me? Not for me personally, but for me as a customer. Can we go one slide back? Yeah. Thank you. Oh no, that's not the one. Oh, do you want to do that first? You were already talking about, we had also the greenfield.
I think the greenfield
right?
Topic is a really important topic. And as we said already in the beginning, so we can see different approaches in the market. So in general, we can separate between greenfield and brownfield. Greenfield means, you start from scratch. And brownfield says, okay, you take the existing systems as a starting point. In general, as you can see, we find both approaches. And also, like I said before, you cannot say this one is the right one and this one is the wrong one. So it definitely depends on the company. Also depends on the status of the existing system. And
the costs of the existing systems, yes. Right?
But
when you just invested lots of money?
There are many factors. Also, the degree of customization is a big influencing factor. Yes, and also if you really would like to go for really business transformation, it might happen that you prefer to go for greenfield or something like this. Yeah, but we find also the mix of both. Yeah. That's actually the majority.
So it was not really a surprise for you, right? These results.
There were some really interesting findings for sure, also for us. Yeah, absolutely.
But especially with this one?
No, actually, we also could see both patterns pretty much in the same way in the market.
Well, I think it's in line with many companies now following a more agile way of doing things. Not like, I mean, the greenfield approach is like a big bang approach, right? So you start more or less from scratch. You need to build out all processes, and then you have a long-term project, which in the end then turns out to be successful or not. Yeah? And I think many companies are probably afraid of doing this big bang thing. And I think the brownfield approach is much more in line with trying to move the system gradually into a new state, yeah, doing it probably slice by slice, yeah. So and having a higher chance of success doing that. And I think for me the second point is we often have this discussion of like two-speed IT, yeah. So again here probably more proof that two-speed IT might also here not be the right solution. Yeah? So we see the majority of the answers being more in favor for an incremental and an agile approach rather than having a separate team trying to turn around the company, introduce processes, and then hoping in the end it will turn out magically to be good. Yeah? So I think that's for me the takeaway here. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
But with brownfield, you mentioned that earlier, we also have this problem. It requires really good master data quality, right?
Absolutely. So to sort out and to really all your master data structure is one of the really most important things to get the transformation to a success, for sure.
But now we want to add the EA tools. If you find the right slide C, now tell us more.
I said it before, so in our experience, we've had different approaches in the market, but the transformation is complex. And to get the complexity under control, you need to have proper tools. And especially when it comes to architecture, so I think almost no company is planning to do the planning just with Excel. Because if you perform such a transformation, you have so many dependencies between applications. You need the overall guiding framework like the processes and capabilities. You have dependencies between applications, interfaces, master data, etc., etc. And you need to have something that shows you all these dependencies and visualizes you, okay, what happens if you move this from here to here, or if you take this piece out, what is the impact on the overall picture and stuff like that. So that's really important. And so we asked for that, and we asked in the study, it's your plan to do with such tools? And they said, the majority said, yeah, planning. It's really blueprinting. And it's also getting transparency about the SS situation and all this stuff, and seeing how does the data flow between the different applications and all this stuff.
And I think I'm also glad to see, or happy to see that there is the topic standards management. So we see it as the last point. From the study, it's a bit surprising that on the one hand, it's not so important from an EA tool perspective. On the other hand, what we found out in the study is many companies are now open to have more standardized processes with SAP. So before they did a lot of customizing. So I think this standards management we're talking here about is more the concern of trying to narrow down the technology choice. We had it in the talk of Zalando before. It's today, I think, not so much about limiting people in their choice of technology, but it's probably not reflecting the standards in the processes. So I think we shouldn't get confused by the answer. So it's more on a technical level, enabling them to pick the right technologies, but then keep it in processes which, or at least in non-core processes, pretty much to the standard.
And EA tools, well, that was of course also the reason why you two joined for this research, right?
Exactly, because we are involved in quite a few of those transformations, and many of our customers using such tools, and we could see which impact such tools have on such a transformation. And so that was the reason why we said, let's do this together, because there's a big connection. Yeah.
And like I said before, many of our customers, they have their landscapes today in SAP, and I think one of the key challenges, and we see it here amongst the top 4 answers in why they're using it, understanding the data flows, the interfaces. So, and especially if you combine now the results, so companies want to do it with a brownfield approach or a mixture of it. So most of them have to understand which other applications are actually connected from where the data is floating. Otherwise, I can't start replacing and changing the architecture. So we believe in that approach, and so we, not only we as a vendor, but I think in general the whole EA tool market is picking up. The whole discipline is picking up. There is a study also available which says that enterprise architect is the fastest growing skill set. So I think this also supports that there's a certain important role as a enabler for such a transformation, and it's no longer just IT because not technical. It's happening more on the process side as well.
And it's not a question of when it's happening, but how.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we could see, so there are different approaches that you can go. It's important. It's complex. You need to have proper tools to get it done in a good way. But there's no way around it.
And it is possible. Don't be scared. You will all be able to do it, right? Some words to sum it up before we take some questions?
No, I mean, we as a vendor are very happy to that we had this joint work with PwC. So for us, it's important to see where the market is going, so that we can understand it. And I think it's not so much only on like us as a tool vendor itself. It's we're trying to be closer to the topics our customers have, and so I think that was a wonderful way to find out more the priorities of where the market is actually going.
Absolutely. So for us, it was also quite. Good cooperation, and actually we were also quite happy about the good responsiveness to the survey that we did in preparation for the study. So there were many customers really providing the information, their view on this, and giving their input, and so this was quite good. Yeah.
And the cooperation will go on, to be continued.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all these insights. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have questions? Yes.
Yes, hi. I was wondering what other EA tools used by the customers that you've interviewed. What's the ratio?
Hopefully only LeanIX.
It was 100% LeanIX customers?
No. No, actually, we didn't ask this question, and you will see this also in the study. So this was not a marketing gag. So we could see that there was a big interest in this topic among our customers, and we just did it to get a view and to get some about this, and not really not to promote any tools or whatever, stuff like that. But you find different tools in the market. So we have many customers, also enterprise customers, using LeanIX actually. But of course, there are also competitors. And you also find a few companies that are still trying to do it with Excel. And yeah,
there he's laughing. More questions? Yes, please.
We also have done some research for ourselves in our situation. We have a big SAP footprint, and we are struggling much to find a business case to go to S4. And now I see this is the most favorite answer. And also you struggled a little bit from my perspective to show the benefit of doing it. And that's exactly also my situation. Can you elaborate a little bit of this, how this is connected?
Absolutely. I think, as said, it's it's complex, and actually this S4 transformation is also quite expensive. So you need definitely, I think in every company, a board approval for that, and they will not approve without having a proper business case. And to find this business case is not easy. And you will never get a business case for this transformation if you treat it just as a technical conversion. Yeah, no way. So you need to find also benefits on business side that gives you a positive business case. And that's one of the challenges for this SAP S4 transformation, to get the business involved, to get the business behind the transformation. That's something that we could see. And this is also one of the reasons why it takes so much time for some companies to get the transformation started, because first they need to get the business involved, they need to get the business aligned. You have different stakeholder groups in the business, and so that have different opinions. So it takes them already 2 years sometimes to get the business involved and aligned, and to get their buy-in. And they still don't have started. That's still the start phase, yeah, before they actually start with the planning or with the transformation itself. Yeah.
Good for now.
Yeah, I can just say for everybody, for me, it's difficult to really convince them to give me a benefit, yeah, on this journey. That's a difficult discussion, because it's difficult to express what is the benefit for them. They don't understand it easily when you come from a technical angle.
No,
of course.
Just the technical angle does give not a positive business case, not at all.
In your whole study, what I miss is there is a huge world outside SAP there, in bigger or larger organizations. So when you're doing that transformation for SAP, are there any concerns from the whoever you interviewed or anything, that how those are going to evolve around S4HANA? I mean, that's the biggest challenge we see in any bigger organizations. So I don't see that aspect coming in your survey, so I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's around how the other ecosystem around SAP is evolving, or
Basically, if you take any larger organization, it's not only SAP ecosystems we have, like we have some other ERPs, some other third-party applications, whatever you call it as. So there is a huge world outside of it. When we are transforming into S4HANA, there will be a serious impact on other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we can recognize in the market is so that, as you just said, so it's not just SAP. Also, if you speak about ERP, then it includes much more applications. And so it's always a kind of integrated landscape that you have to consider. And that's what we meant with complexity. So you have different applications, so it's a combination of different, also huge applications that are connected. And you also have to consider that you have applications that are really cloud-based, that you have on-premise applications, and that you also will have this hybrid platform landscape. And actually one trend also in the market is that it is getting more and more in this direction. So SAP is really very prominent for the core, but more and more companies are involving other applications as kind of satellite systems around it. That's what we see. Yeah.
Maybe also a good opportunity to review the other study I mentioned yesterday, which is more broad on the general state of enterprise architecture. So questions like cloud adoption and so on. So I'm more covered probably in that, but we're also happy to accept your ideas for next study, right? So, yeah.
Yes.
Talking about the standards that you mentioned, I think typically, as you said, in enterprise architecture world, people are focusing on the standards of the complexity of all the other tools, and SAP is kind of an ecosystem on its own. So one of the biggest challenges we see in the transformation is a study on how standard is our SAP. How well have we used standard SAP, or how much are we deviating from there? And that's the big cost of the migration. mostly the big consulting companies are using their own tool sets, internal tools to do that analysis. Is that something you're working on, whether we're working with them to use that, or maybe use LeanIX as you do with other tools to integrate more into SAP to show the complexity or the standardization of SAP itself in your tool?
If you're planning or if you're transforming your landscape, you need lots of tools, and so it's usually a tool set. An enterprise architecture management tool is one tool of this tool set. So quite important tools are also these business process management systems, and usually they're very well integrated or should be very well integrated. But you also have to involve tools that help you with the customization. Yeah, that's a big topic. And the technical conversion also, for that stuff, you also need lots of tools. So it's really a big set of tools that need to get involved to get it done. Yeah.
And I think I fully agree with you. Probably we haven't kind of untapped the full potential of what we can do in LeanIX today. What we do is probably interesting is in combination with Signavio, where the process modeling is fully integrated with our platform. Together with another partner, we have developed a way to import data from SAP Solution Manager. So that's pretty interesting to see the interfaces which are there, which have been built. So we have a success study with a customer, AMAC, who started very early on this topic. They have automatically imported all of that to start the dialogue with the business. So that's probably interesting to review. And then, of course, I would believe that breaking down business capabilities and rating them, how well the business capability is close to the standard or not. Yeah? So that's probably an exercise which needs to be done with the people who have done the implementation. But I think it would help to kind of break it down from a business capability perspective, yeah? And then make use of the data which we can automatically import from other systems. Yeah? So these are topics we have today, and of course, we're trying to think together with vendors on different things like roadmaps, how we can include roadmaps and roadmap data into the product. But I think that's more on the long term development of the product.
Yes.
I think it's interesting also to look to automation things. That means you go down in the stack, the CIM stack, and there is a lot of things that are not covered or not done today to work with the data that come from production systems and things like that, or customers and things like that. And I think that in the integration of these things, there is a way to make more value with LeanIX and also with SAP for HANA.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you've probably seen it as part of our strategy and roadmap. Automation plays a big role. Not only ServiceNow, Signavio, like being able to put it to Confluence. So having open APIs. So that's definitely the case. Probably what's today a little bit a white spot in our product suite still is understanding data flows automatically from data floating between the different systems. So I think that's something which can even be built by our partners. So they can hook into the platforms like integration platforms, MuleSoft, and so on to automatically derive that data and even use things like machine learning to kind of separate out what data types are transferred. So I would fully agree it's a white spot today. I think we have the platform to build it in the future and also for partners to extend it. And I think that's definitely in line with what we would like to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, more questions? Yes, one last one.
Thank you. I go with one of the speakers before. I would like to address the business topic again. So we are talking about how, And for me, how also covers the business side. So when you make an analysis, how to proceed on, do you have some arguments? What is being used by other companies to convince the business that there are positive arguments to switch over to SAP for HANA?
There are lots of documents available, also, of course, provided by SAP, because they're also facing the challenge to giving their customers lots of material that allows them, to get this business case done. One of, I would say, the key argues is, at least as we could see, so everyone is speaking about digital transformation and changing the landscape to get more agile. And if you have a very complex system that has been built over the years, you're not able to move anymore. You can compare it with a kind of flat where you have lived in for 40 years, and you get more and more furnitures and books and everything, and it gets really crowded. And then you have to relocate, and then you say, oh shit, I have so much stuff, and how shall I do it? And so that's a challenge. And so they don't see themselves really prepared for this digital transformation because they have so much stuff and they're so complex and they're not agile enough. So I think this could be definitely a strong argument for doing this. And beside that, of course, you also have definitely some technical functionality or some functionalities that comes within memory computing and stuff like that. That also is very supportive for everything around analytics, which is also very important when it comes to digital business models. So there are a few reasons that you can use, that you can take as a core of your business case. But happy to provide you some more details on this after the session. So detailed overviews about what we see as a key business benefits.
So can I ask an additional question regarding this topic? Okay, we have a complex SAP landscape using the complete bunch, and agility is also a topic which is very relevant for us, improving time to market, being able to provide new innovative business models, and we see the old stuff. So from my point of view, to make it more proper or handleable, I see, for example, in greenfield approach, and starting with smaller business processes and things like that. That means throwing away a lot of the old stuff. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, when I'm starting to migrate the old stuff into a new landscape, then it's for me not obvious that I see an improvement. So that I would like to make it digital and agile, but I'm put all this old stuff with me. Do you have an experience that other companies do the same? That means reducing the business processes landscape.
Exactly. That is the reason why you find such a high amount of companies going also for greenfield. Otherwise, you would just have companies going for brownfield. But the majority of companies are going for a mix, and you have also a degree of companies going really for greenfield. Yeah. And but it really depends on the specific situation of a company, which approach they choose. Yeah. So, but there are definitely also lots of companies going for greenfield or mixed approach.
One more.
Thanks. Now that you say that, SAP is doing annual releases because SAP is basically moving its legacy to rewrite it on native S4. So, of course, SAP needs to keep the continuity of the revenues and everything, which is clear. But if I'm a customer and I really want to leverage the new, am I supposed to do every year basically movements which are following SAP's rewrites? Or what would you comment on that?
No, you don't have to follow everything. But at least for the but I think in general this is a big step, and everyone or every SAP customer has to do this big step. But this does not mean that afterwards you have to follow also every minor step. For sure not, in my view. Yeah.
Well, still, I believe don't believe it's the last big step. Yeah, so.
But it's going to take a few more years before the next big steps.
I think better get used to
But at the last
changes happen.
Sapphire, they were already introducing the next major release, so giving the first insights about it. So it will come.
I think we should stop talking here right now. Well, thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much for PwC Oliver Klein and for LeanIX André Christ. Thank you.